is a rope tied to a hook in the ceiling of a Florentine prison, and in February of 1513, the men who work here are very good with it. The technique is called the strappado. Your hands are bound behind your back. The rope goes over the hook, attaches to your wrists, and lifts you slowly until your whole body hangs from your own shoulders, turned backward in their sockets. Then they let you drop. Not all the way, just enough for the jerk at the bottom to take the joints apart. 6 drops is what they gave the prisoner in this cell. 6 times up, 6 times down. And here is why you are watching this video. The prisoner confessed to nothing, but he did do something with those 6 drops, something stranger than enduring them. Within days of his release, he wrote comic poems about the experience. Jokes. From a man whose shoulders had just been pulled out of their sockets, addressed to the family of the men who ordered it. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. And no, before the movie trailer starts in your head, none of it saved him. He lost his job, his city, and eventually his name, which the world turned into an insult. Machiavellian, schemer, snake. But between the rope and the ruin, he demonstrated 3 rules for surviving the moment when someone with power over you decides to make an example of you. Rules for the exact second when every eye in the room is on you, waiting to see you break. Now come forward 500 years, a conference room in Seattle, glass on 3 sides, rain. A man named Daniel is 34, runs a product team at a tech company, and is about to be executed professionally in front of 40 colleagues by an executive who has decided Daniel is the kind of problem you solve publicly. The executive's name is Whitaker. Remember the name. He forgets nothing, forgives nothing, and has made 6 careers and ended 11. What happens in the next 90 seconds is going to look like nothing. That's the point. The most dangerous thing a man can do under attack, Machiavelli learned, hanging from that rope, is nothing at all. Rule 1 is the hardest. Stay with me. How a middle manager ends up on a hook. First, understand who Machiavelli actually was, because he wasn't a prince. He was a middle manager, second chancellor of the Florentine Republic, which sounds grand and means he wrote memos, organized a militia, and went on diplomatic missions where he watched powerful men lie to each other and took notes. For 14 years, he had a front row seat to the most ruthless political theater in Europe. He stood in Cesare Borgia's camp while Borgia was quietly having his enemies strangled. Machiavelli didn't flinch then either. He just wrote it all down. Then in 1512, the music stopped. The Medici came back to Florence behind a Spanish army, the same family the Republic had expelled while Machiavelli was a young man watching. The Republic collapsed in a matter of days, and on November 7th, Machiavelli, the Republic's loyal servant for a decade and a half, was dismissed, not just fired, confined, forbidden from entering the government palace he'd worked in his whole adult life, banned from leaving Florentine territory for a year. 4 months later, it got worse. 2 young men, Boscoli and Caponi, were caught plotting against the Medici. On Boscoli's body, the authorities found a list. Names. Machiavelli's was on it. He had almost certainly done nothing. Boscoli barely knew him. Didn't matter. In February 1513, the guards came at dawn, and the middle manager went to the prison, and the prison had a hook in the ceiling. Boscoli and Caponi were executed. Machiavelli went to the rope. Daniel's fall starts with a failed product launch, Project Atlas. 3 quarters late, dead on arrival. The uncomfortable truth, known to exactly 4 people, is that the failure was Whitaker's. He overrode the timeline, twice, in writing. In emails he has since quietly deleted. But companies don't run on truth. They run on narratives. And Whitaker has already chosen his. Atlas failed because Daniel's team failed. One narrative, one villain, one public execution, and the whole floor learns the price of disappointing Whitaker. Machiavelli wrote that men judge by what they see, not by what is. Whitaker never read Machiavelli. He didn't have to. Men like that are born knowing Chapter 18. Rule 1. Don't feed the moment. The strappado was not interrogation. Understand that, or the story makes no sense. The Medici already had the list. There was nothing to extract. The rope was a message to Machiavelli, and through him, to every functionary of the old republic. You are nothing now, and we can hurt you whenever we like. And that is exactly why his answer matters, because a message only works if it's received in the right emotional condition. Terror needs a witness. Humiliation needs an audience of one, you. 6 drops. And in the letter he wrote afterward to his friend Vittori, this is attested, his own words. Machiavelli reports the number the way you'd report the weather. 6 pulls, born, he says, with such composure that he esteems himself for it. Not survived, esteemed. The man walked out of a torture cell with a performance review of himself, and it was glowing. Here is Rule 1. The moment of impact is not the moment to respond. Every reaction you give in that moment, the flinch, the protest, the flushed explanation, is information. You're telling the person hurting you exactly where the hurt lands and how much it costs them to do it again. Machiavelli gave the rope nothing. No confession, no begging, no theater. 6 times up, 6 times down, and the men with the hook learned nothing, except that this one didn't pay out. Now the conference room. Whitaker is 15 minutes into eviscerating Atlas, and he turns and does the thing executives do when they've decided the room needs a sacrifice. He makes it personal. Names Daniel, his team, his judgment, and then, this is the knife, he announces the reorganization. Daniel's team, reassigned, effective Monday. DeMarcus, a rival VP, who was sitting 3 chairs away, trying not to smile. 40 people turn to look at Daniel. Phones stop typing. The rain keeps going on the glass. Daniel takes a slow sip of his coffee, sets it down, nods once. Noted, he says, and takes out his pen. Watch what happens in the room, because Machiavelli could have predicted it to the person. The flinch never came, so the story has nowhere to go. Whitaker needed a flinch, needed Daniel to argue, to defend, to raise his voice, because any of those would have made him the emotional one, the unstable one, the guy who lost it in a meeting. Instead, the room got 5 seconds of dead silence and a man writing in a notebook. By lunch, the story on the floor isn't Daniel got destroyed. It's, did you see Whitaker's face when Daniel didn't react? The moment of impact is not the moment to respond. The moment of impact is the moment your enemy shows you his method. Write it down. Literally, if you have to. Rule 2. Convert the pain. Now the part of the story that should not be possible. Machiavelli is in the cell, shoulders ruined, friends executed. Boscoli and Capone died while he hung from that rope. His career is ash. His city is run by the family that tortured him, and he has no reason to believe he'll see another spring. So he writes poems to Giuliano de' Medici, the family, the people with the hook, comic sonnets from his cell, jokes about the lice, jokes about the stench, jokes about the chains clanking in the night like cathedral music. And they're not mad ravings. They're calculated, controlled, and weirdly charming. A prisoner demonstrating, in verse, to the most powerful family in Italy, that their worst had landed on a man it could not dent. This is Rule 2. Pain that you convert stops being pain and starts being material. Machiavelli didn't endure the prison. He mined it. Every insult, every humiliation, every drop of the rope went into the furnace, and what came out was work. Poems then and later, the book. Understand the mechanism, because this is where self-help lies to you. Converting pain is not staying positive. It's not gratitude journaling in a dungeon. It's colder and better than that. It's deciding that everything done to you is research. The person hurting you thinks they're spending your dignity. You're actually collecting their methods, for free, at their expense, in real time. Daniel, after the meeting, does not go home and punch a wall. He goes home and opens a folder on his laptop. He names it nothing, a date, that's all. And he starts the ledger. Every meeting Whitaker calls without an agenda. Every timeline override, resaved to 3 locations. Every directive given verbally that contradicts something written. Daniel doesn't editorialize, doesn't rage type, doesn't draft the angry email and delete it like the rest of us. He just documents the way Machiavelli took notes in Borgia's camp. Calm, dated, boring, devastating. And here's the second half of Rule 2, the half that converts pain into fuel instead of just armor. Daniel takes the demoted, hollowed-out version of his job, the scraps Whitaker left him, and does it at a level that makes people uncomfortable. Reports so clean the auditors start copying his format. Processes so tight that other teams start quietly routing around Marcus, the rival who took his people to borrow Daniel's. 6 months after being publicly executed, the floor has a new story. Don't you get everything important to Daniel first? Marcus tries him at the holiday party. Cornered by the bar, loud enough for the VPs. How's it feel running a team of 1? Daniel smiles, genuinely, which is the frightening part, and says, "Good luck with them, Marcus. They'll teach you a lot about a man." Walks off with his drink. Marcus stands there laughing half a second too long, and everyone nearby clocks that the laugh came half a second too long. Converting pain. The poems from the cell. The ledger from the meeting. Same furnace, 500 years apart. Rule 3. Re-enter on your own terms. In March 1513, Giovanni de' Medici was elected Pope, Leo X, and Rome celebrated with an amnesty. The cell door opened. Machiavelli walked out, shoulders and all, to a farm outside Florence at San Casciano. No job, no palace, no audience. A man of 44 with a peasant's daily life. Mornings arguing with the woodcutters, afternoons at the tavern playing cards with the butcher, and then the evenings. This is the most famous letter he ever wrote, December 10th, 1513. And if you've ever wondered what dignity actually looks like from the inside, it's this paragraph. He describes coming home from the tavern, going into his study, and changing clothes. He takes off the muddy day clothes and puts on his words, garments fit for a royal court. Dressed like that, alone, he enters, I'm quoting, the ancient courts of ancient men, and talks with the dead, with Livy, with Tacitus, with the generals and the lawgivers. And for 4 hours, he wrote, I feel no boredom. I forget every trouble. I do not fear poverty. I am not terrified by death. Out of those 4-hour evenings came a little book. He finished it in months. He called it The Prince, and it was his re-entry. Not begging the Medici for his old desk back, a gift, a manual of power, written by the one man in Europe who'd watched it practiced at closest range. He didn't crawl back into the conversation. He wrote the book the conversation would be about for 500 years. Rule 3. When you come back with something no one can ignore. Not an apology tour, not a reputation repair campaign. Work so undeniable that the room has to reopen for you. On your terms, in your clothes, at your hour. The board meeting. 8 months after Atlas. It isn't even about Atlas. It's a quarterly review and Whitaker is presenting, and a board member asks a procedural question about the old timeline decisions. Whitaker answers smoothly. The room moves on. Except, Daniel is in the room to present a 2-minute ops update, the kind of slot nobody remembers. He does his 2 minutes. Then, as he gathers his laptop, he places a single printed page in front of each board member. Says exactly 1 sentence. Version history for the Atlas timeline, in case it's useful for the audit. Have a good quarter. And sits down. Nobody reacts. That's how you know it worked. The page does everything a raised voice never could. Dates, overrides, initials. Whitaker presents for 11 more minutes, and every person at that table is reading 2 things at once. Whitaker is gone by Friday. Quietly. Boards do everything quietly. That's their iron face. There is no announcement connecting anything to anything. There never is. And Daniel, here's the detail that makes a story. They offer him the victory tour, the interim VP slot, the all hands where he gets introduced as the turnaround guy. He declines the tour, takes the VP slot, skips the coronation. Because the point was never the room's applause. Applause is just the flinch running backward. The point was the work, and the work was already speaking. On his new desk, first day, someone has left a battered paperback as a joke. The Prince. Daniel looks at it for a long second. Then he puts it on the shelf, spine out, where everyone can see it, and gets back to work. The dark phase, what the iron face costs. Now the honesty, or none of this means anything. The Prince didn't work. The Medici glanced at Machiavelli's gift and set it aside. He never got his career back. Not really. Small errands, minor commissions, the occasional bone thrown to a dangerous mind. They preferred close, but not inside. In 1527, when the Medici fell again and the Republic came back, the Republic he'd served for 14 years, the job he'd have crawled to get, they passed him over. Too Medici-friendly, said the Republicans. Too Republican, said everyone else. The iron face had made him unreadable to every faction, and unreadable men don't get invited back in. They get studied. He died weeks later. June 1527. He was 58, and the book that would outlive empires was still, in his lifetime, a rumor in manuscript copies. And there's the deeper cost, the one inside the lesson. The man who taught Europe never to show weakness gave the world a word for untrustworthiness, Machiavellian, and had to live inside that word. His friends half feared him. His jokes landed like moves. When you never show weakness, people eventually stop believing you have any. And a man with no visible weakness is a man nobody quite dares to love. Daniel's version is quieter but real. Watch the floor after his promotion. People straighten when he passes. They see him carefully. Nobody corners him at the bar anymore, not even to be friendly. He won every room he walked into, and the price is that every room now goes slightly formal when he enters it. He doesn't regret it, but he notices. Noticing is the tax. So here the whole law, not half. The iron face is armor for moments of impact. It was never meant to be a face you live in. Machiavelli's tragedy isn't that he wore the mask. It's that the world never again let him take it off. 3 rules from a man who learned them hanging from a rope. 1. The moment of impact is not the moment to respond. Your reaction is information. Stop handing it out for free. 2. Convert the pain. Everything done to you is research. The furnace only burns what you don't use. 3. Come back with something undeniable. Not explanations, not apologies. Work that reopens the room on your terms. And then, the part the Sigma edits will never tell you, take the mask off when the fight is over, while you still can. Machiavelli, the coldest reputation in history, spent his evenings dressing up to talk to dead friends for 4 hours, forgetting. His words, every trouble. The iron face was never the man. It was the door he held shut so the man couldn't be touched. Hold your door, but know what's behind it, and let the right people in. Next in the series, the knight Cesare Borgia hugged his enemies at the door and had them strangled by morning. Stay 10 steps ahead. The Sinigaglia Playbook. Subscribe, and the next time the room turns to watch you break, sip your coffee. Noted. Take out your pen.